Ever feel like the weather's getting weirder? Hotter summers, crazier storms, and wildfire everywhere? That's not just your imagination. It's climate change, a long-term shift in Earth's climate, and right now, it mostly means the planet is heating up. This is caused by greenhouse gases like carbon dioxide, methane, and nitrous oxide that trap heat in our atmosphere. And the main culprit? It's us. Human burns fossil fuels for electricity, transportation, and industry. We cut down forests that absorb CO2, and massive farm release even more harmful gases. Our modern lifestyles, full of energy use, plastic, and waste, are making things worse. But here's the unfair part. The countries causing most of the pollution, like the US, Canada, China, and those in Europe, aren't the ones suffering the most. It is poorer countries like Bangladesh, island nation, and parts of Africa and Latin America that are hit hardest by floods, drought, and rising seas. That's where climate justice comes in. The idea is that the most affected deserve support and solutions. This isn't just about science, it's about fairness. And it's up to our generation to speak up and make things right. Before we talk more about that, we need to know about some little things, such as energy. Energy is vital for our current way of living. Without energy, you will be too cold without some heaters in the winter, too hot without some air conditioning in the summer, or too bored without some games. Energy is pretty damn important for our life, huh? Well, when did it all start?
Let's travel back in time to Great Britain in the late 18th century, the beginning of the Industrial Revolution. This period brought a lot of change with it. Thanks to new inventions like a mechanical loom and steam engines, people were able to produce a lot more in less time because they no longer needed to do everything by hand, and the power they had, you could say they had help. The change in production also brought a lot of changes for the social living and working situations of people and laid the foundation of the current economic system of most Western countries. But we won't touch on that today, don't worry about it. One thing we'll take a look at though is how this is connected to CO2 emissions and climate change. Before the Industrial Revolution, people burned biomass like wood for energy and used manpower and animals for work. But during the Industrial Revolution, the steam engine was invented to drive machines. Now, we no longer needed manpower or animals, but only needed to burn coal. Later, we added oil and gas as energy sources. But there is a catch. All of these produce a lot of CO2, which is bad for the planet.
But what is CO2? I'm glad you asked. CO2, or carbon dioxide, is one of those little byproducts that are produced with, well, a lot of stuff. CO2 comes from all sorts of events and things such as fires, volcanoes. Even me speaking right now is causing carbon dioxide. But on its own, this is completely fine. Right? Well, with human industrialization, energy sources such as the humble coal or oil produces a lot of CO2 when burnt. But here's the conundrum. It produces so much CO2 that it, well, keeps the heat in. This is greenhouse gases. Think of CO2 or greenhouse gases as a glass in the greenhouse. The more layers of glass are added, the warmer the greenhouse gets. This is exactly the same system our atmosphere uses when it comes to CO2. Okay, so burning fossil fuels produces energy. But how much CO2 does burning actually do? Look at this chart behind me. This little chart, kindly supplied by the United Nations, shows how much CO2 is produced, depending on how much fuel is burnt, or energy is being produced. You see that tower of a stat? That's coal, producing 820 gigatons of CO2. It's worth noting, however, that without the greenhouse effect, our planet would be a frozen wasteland. But, wait. What is this solar, or geothermal, or nuclear? Well, my friends, these low emitting energy sources are renewables. Renewables are the hip, cool new energy sources on the block that not only produce a decent supply of energy, but it's clean energy. These energy sources are virtually infinite and produce very little CO2. But wait a minute, climate voices. What's actually the difference between these fossil fuels and these renewables? Well, I'm glad you asked.
We have the bad energy sources that contribute the most to CO2 emissions, such as coal. Coal contains carbon that turns into carbon dioxide when burned. It is found that 1 ton of burned coal produced about 2.86 tons of CO2. On the other hand, we have oil and gas. The oil from cars and trucks is responsible for emitting more than 5 kilograms of CO2, and this is in the United States alone. Gas is burned. It is also responsible for CO2 emissions into the atmosphere, which increases global warming and temperature rise, not to mention the emissions resulting from the extraction, transportation, and storage of these sources. On the other hand, we find good energy sources that play a major role in reducing CO2 emissions by integrating them into the daily lives of users. For example, solar energy. Users save about 35 tons of CO2 emissions and 75 million barrels of oil only. Wind energy also helps avoid 351 million tons of emissions. We also have geothermal energy, which is environmentally friendly and non-polluting. The European Union aims to generate 42.5% of its energy from responsible resources by 2030 in a move to reduce emissions and achieve carbon neutrality. The shift to clean energy is not only an environmental necessity but a strategic choice to ensure a sustainable future that mitigates the negative impact of climate change.
Now, we've talked a lot about why our planet is heating up so fast, which can be scary. But the good news is, you can do something about it. And you don't even need to be rich or powerful to do so. So today, we're going to show you 8 ways to reduce your energy consumption, and it might even save you some money. 1. Take shorter, cooler showers. This saves the energy that is used to heat the water. 2. The same applies for washing your laundry and running the dishwasher. Only do it when it's full and use a lower heat setting. 3. The biggest energy eater is the tumble dryer. It uses up to 4% of household electricity and can be easily replaced by hanging your laundry to air dry. 4. You can also save energy by adapting your heating and cooling habits. Turn it down 1 degree in winter and 1 degree up in summer, or use a programmable thermostat and keep the shades down to reduce the need of heating or AC. 5. This is maybe the easiest one. Unplug all the electronics you don't use and turn off the lights when you leave a room. It sounds very simple, but can make a huge difference. Number 6. You can obviously always convince your parents to switch to renewable energy sources, which are better for the planet. 7. Have you ever thought about how much energy is used by ChatGPT or searching on Google? The answer is a lot. Currently, ChatGPT consumes about 2.9 million kilowatt hours a day. You could use that energy to provide 1,500 two-person households with energy for 1 year. A simple request to ChatGPT uses 10 times the energy needed for 1 Google search. So next time you want to ask it something, think about if it's really necessary. And also always think about if you have to Google everything, because this still uses a lot of energy. And last but not least, if you're into shopping, even here there are ways to reduce your energy consumption. For example, by reusing and buying used clothes. and by avoiding ordering different sizes while online shopping. The best thing you can do for the environment is shop in person and only buy things you'll actually wear for a longer time. So you see, there's an awful lot you can do in your everyday life, and we've got even more tips for you in the video description down below. This is all just, dare we say, is this a climate justice?
Climate injustice. You may think, is that even a thing? Well, yes it is. Let me break it out for you. While the global north is responsible for most emissions, it's largely shielded from the worst effects of climate change. The global south, on the other hand, contributes the least to emissions but suffers the most from its impacts. Just look at the floods in Southeast Asia and the droughts across Africa. You can see that the ones suffering the most are those who did the least to cause climate change. And even within richer nations, the poor suffer first and worst. Why? Because they live with fewer resources and little protection. That's not just a climate issue, that's climate injustice, and it's time to face it and fix it.
Now, there's multiple ways to repurpose old junk into beautiful, marvelous contraptions to produce energy in a clean manner. And I'll go over some of my personal favourites with you. A word of warning, however, make sure you're under supervision by an adult for some of these projects. There'll also be some electronic jargon, but if you love tinkering, then this will be an absolute joy. All the links will be in the description below, and let's get into it. Our first one is turning an old fan into a wind turbine by NDA. What NDA Hack does is he just replaces the motor with a generator. He then follows up by adding a fin so the turbine can follow the wind. And to demonstrate how the project works, he's charging his phone. No plug into the mains power needed, completely off grid. Another one uses solar panels to also charge phones. Do phones rule the world? All you need is some panels that you can find with some solar gardening lights, some capacitors, a potentiometer, a voltage regulator, and a few diodes. I highly recommend looking up how these work before doing this project. This project is more soldering heavy, so if you don't know what that is, it's basically baby welding. Energy in today's society is vital, but it is a resource that we must not take for granted. For if we have no energy, we have no reliable heating, lighting, amenities, the whole shebang. It's our responsibility to ensure we're mindful of what energy we use, produce, for if we continue using fossil fuels, we could snuff our beautiful planet out until we have nothing more than smog. For continuing to lack good energy habits and knowledge is injustice, for we must try our best and succeed in ensuring a brighter tomorrow.